Turning now to political news here in Ottawa. President Joe Biden's visit to the city is less than a week away. 2 years ago, both countries launched a roadmap for a renewed U.S.-Canada partnership, a blueprint for shared priorities like climate change, defense, and the post-pandemic recovery. But since the launch of the roadmap, the Biden administration has thrown in some speed bumps. There's the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act, which offers billions of dollars, $375 billion to be exact, in subsidies to attract businesses, and the Trilateral Security Pact between Australia, the UK, and the US, which sees Canada on the sidelines. So how should Canada navigate these trade and defense issues? Let's take that to our panel of MPs. Joining us is Vassy Kapelos. He's the Indigenous Services Parliamentary Secretary. He serves as a member of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee. Andrew Scheer is the Conservative House Leader, and Heather McPherson is the NDP Foreign Affairs Critic. Good afternoon to the three of you. Thanks so much for being there. It's actually really good to see you because this is, a really important topic. So I'm going to open the discussion here by quoting an American official who said earlier this week that, quote, Canada-U.S. relations isn't great, but it's fine. Okay, that sounds like a lukewarm relationship to me. So Vassy, by the way, let me start with you. Define the biggest issue Canada has with the U.S., or what is Canada's biggest ask?
Well, I think essentially what we're doing is creating stronger relationships. I just got back from Washington last week and spoke to many members of Congress, and they're very, very aware of our concerns, but as well, they're very eager to strengthen that relationship and to ensure that we're working more toward integrating our economy, as well as the issues that we're tackling, that we're doing it together. And ultimately to move the ball down the field, whether it be with issues like, for example, the Great Lakes and the $6 trillion industry and 51 million jobs that are attached to it, being a border member of parliament, that's a priority for us. And again, with the strengths that we're actually sharing right now, such as the Great Lakes, our aim and our priority is with our American counterparts is to strengthen that relationship and to ensure that as we move forward together.
So Heather, I see a lot of issues. One of them is probably environmental. We have Biden opening Alaska's oil reserves to oil production, kind of throwing his environmental principles a little bit under the bus. Now, will he be expecting Canada, as the Russians are withholding their gas exports to Europe, does Canada stand by its environmental principles, or does it help Europe and basically the world?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the question, Joyce. And I can't start this interview without giving my deep sympathies and my heartfelt condolences to the families of the two constables, Constable Jordan and Ryan, that were killed in Edmonton. It's a horrendous thing that's affected, of course, all of us. I'm in Edmonton right now, and it's affected all of us. So I did want to start off the top by mentioning that and expressing my sympathies. In terms of Biden's visit, Biden has done more to move forward good union-paying jobs for Americans than this government has done. Like, our government has to play catch-up to make sure that we're actually doing the work that needs to be done to make sure that we have jobs. You talk about the environmental implications and are we standing with our people. Well, what I would say is that, I'm an Albertan. I would say that we have an obligation to invest in green technology, invest in green industries, but we also have an obligation to make sure that the workers in Alberta and across the country are being protected. And I don't see the Liberal government fighting for the jobs in Alberta, fighting for our workers here. Hopefully we'll see something in the budget in the coming days. This is an exciting time to be a politician in Ottawa. We've got a lot coming up. But we heard from Biden that he is investing in green union jobs, good paying union jobs, and new technologies. We haven't heard that from either the government or the official opposition. So that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to be able to have our government go to that table and be fighting for what it looks like in Canada. What does that transition look like? What does good jobs for our workers in Alberta and across the country look like?
So Andrew Scheer, you know, it seems that this was not really a priority for this administration, this trip to Canada. They waited long enough, but modernizing NORAD, I want to talk about defense, the North American defense system, you know, sending, you know, Canadians to Haiti to help quell the gang war going on there. Those are just two examples of American asks. We know those are American asks. Can Canada deliver right now?
Well, you know, under Justin Trudeau, U.S.-Canada relations have not improved. Trudeau has treated the entire world as his stage. He's clowned around all over the globe, and he's set our relationships back with our major trading partners like India and like the United States. And, you know, I just have to respond to a couple of things that have been said. You know, I really object to the bias in the suggestion that developing natural resources in Canada is not an environmentally sound thing to do, because it is. It's much better for the planet. It's much better for our atmosphere to have Canadian technology, Canadian workers developing our natural resources and exporting it around the world to displace dirtier foreign energy products. It doesn't do the world any good if Canada leaves our oil and gas in the ground and China burns more and more coal. So Canada, under Justin Trudeau on the world stage, has missed a massive opportunity to supply energy to Europe. You want to talk about strengthening ties with the United States and working on these joint initiatives where we share values. Well, European regional security is one of those, and Canada could have played a leading role getting Germany, France, Italy off of Russian oil so that Putin doesn't use those dollars to shell Ukraine. When it comes to security, again, you know, we're watching the United States develop closer relationships with the UK and Australia on intelligence and security at the same time that Justin Trudeau's refusing to be open and transparent about Beijing's interference in Canadian elections. So it's frustrating to watch a strong relationship with the U.S. suffer because the Trudeau government doesn't take it seriously and has not been able to put our own issues on the table. What about the Canadian issues around Roxham Road and people crossing into Canada from at that location? What about softwood lumber? You know, we still don't have a permanent deal to softwood lumber almost a decade after Trudeau took office. So, you know, there are things that Trudeau should be coming to the table with in the hopes of advancing Canadian interests and not just reacting to what the United States is doing.
So Vance, by the way, I think Andrew Scheer made a lot of points and a lot of good points. So I'm going to go to the Inflation Reduction Act that Heather was also talking about, that historic $375 billion green transition. You know, with the U.S. offering grants and loans and incentives to investors. How is Canada, that's just one of the questions I think that Andrew Scheer raised, but let me go to that one. How is Canada going to respond to that?
Well, again, strong dialogue with respect to what their priorities are. But again, I want to respond by saying, working with our strengths. In Canada, with the minerals that we have here and how we can add to the overall supply chain, not just as Canada, but as North America, both Canada and the United States. Moving forward, we have a great ability to bring us up to 2023, not relying on what was, but what is and what can be. And we're doing that. We're having strong dialogue, not just with the U.S., but with our international partners. And frankly, because of that dialogue and the advantage and the strengths that we have, such as our natural minerals in all parts of the country, we have an opportunity right now to ensure that not only are we strengthening our dialogue and strengthening our new economy that's available here in Canada, but with that, again, as I said earlier, we're doing it together. And I think that's a point that can't be missed in this discussion today, is that we're not in it alone. And we've made it very clear, at least in the travels that I've had in the U.S., as well as here domestically. Right now I'm up in the Arctic, and we're discussing those same issues. And by adding those strengths with the strengths of what the U.S. is doing and the direction that they're taking, again, we're moving forward togetwant and with that, it's going to strengthen our overall binational supply chains of what we would expect.
Yeah. I want to bring your two colleagues in. I'm not sure that we're moving in sync with the Americans. So Heather, and then I want to hear Andrew Scheer on this. Should the government clearly put money on the table, as the Americans have. Of course, we can't put $370 billion on the table for that kind of transition. But Heather, should there be some of that, considering, you know, Joe Biden's visit in the next budget? Should Canada put serious money on the table for a green transition?
Well, you know, listen.
How much money?
I mean, if you listen to Mr. Scheer, like, we would get stuck in the past. You know, the rest of the world is moving forward. The rest of the world has these incredible opportunities that are coming available, and we need to be there so that we can participate in that. You know, I'm from Alberta. I want to see Alberta on the forefront of some of these new opportunities, this future economy. Of course, there is going to continue to be the need for Canadian oil and gas products, of course, but we need to be looking forward. We need to be finding those opportunities for workers. We need to be investing in the future. We need to be part of those conversations. To be talking about, like, not being there, that's a mistake, and it's a mistake that'll cost my province hugely, but it's also a mistake, you know, that'll cost Canadians. It'll cost our economy. I have young children. I want to make sure that they want to stay in Alberta, that they want to continue to work in Alberta because there's great jobs that are forward facing. We need to have that investment, and we need to have our government come to the table with the president and actually explain to them why it doesn't need to be in America first. It needs to be in North America first. We need to work together. We have deeply embedded supply chains. We need to be working together to be stronger.
I just want to get Andrew Scheer in here. Is there a way for Canada to compete against the Inflation Reduction Act? Is there something on a smaller scale or something that you think the Americans would be interested in?
Well, look, I mean, inflation is hitting Canada hard because Justin Trudeau made the same mistakes that many other world leaders did during the pandemic, and that was create a whole bunch of brand new cash and flood the economy with new dollars chasing fewer goods. That's why we have inflation. If we want to get serious about tackling inflation and attracting investment, then the government must stop the inflationary deficits in the first place. And we should look at the low-hanging fruit. You know, the big government interventionist policies that are being proposed by my NDP colleague and by the Trudeau Liberals.
What about tax evasion? We could look at that.
Often has the impact of like giving a thirsty person salt water. It might look like it's going to help, but it actually makes the problem worse. We can look at things like the carbon tax. You want to invest, if the government wants to attract investment and compete with the United States on new investments into Canada, we could start by eliminating the job-killing carbon tax, which is a massive barrier to investment and raises costs in a very significant way. We could look at regulatory reductions. Canada, I believe it's something like 64th in the world for permit approvals for project completions. You know, this is not about the past. With all due respect to my NDP colleagues, there is currently a crisis in Europe today because European countries have to buy much of their energy from a hostile government in Russia. Canada could have solved that if we had a government that was facilitating the development of our natural resources, not making it impossible to get large-scale LNG projects approved.
Obviously, this is, you know, a conversation that we're going to be having all of next week because the president arrives on Thursday evening. Vance Badaway, Andrew Scheer, and Heather McPherson, thanks so much for this and for spending and sharing your time with us, and have yourselves a great weekend.
Thanks, Joyce.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Have a good weekend.